Oh, can you feel that? It's so thick you could spread it on toast. So potent it could empty a room in seconds. It's time to feel the anger. Become enveloped in the anger. It's time to fucking embrace the anger.
So yeah, having talked about hated characters last week, I'm now tackling the whole damn thing. Like every aspect of gaming, and if you haven't heard, there's quite a lot of them. I won't be concentrating too much on things that happen outside of what the game itself is, like lag and screaming 12-year-olds in multiplayer lobbies, but each and every component is up for grabs here. Each fundamental part of what makes a video game a slightly less enjoyable experience than you'd like. Let's face it, no game is perfect and you'll be able to find faults in all of them, but sometimes you find faults that stand out like a sore thumb, and must be eliminated. Sadly, I don't have that power, so instead I've got to lament their uses in games I like. One day, one day.
So first up we have something that I don't like in video games, but also I completely understand the purpose of it. It's just something that nothing's going to change about it, you just get on with things, knowing that that's there, it's a staple part of video games. Of course, I'm talking about...
Yep, it's loading screens, one of the few remaining parts of a video game that remind you that you are in fact still playing a video game. You can hark on about immersion and realism, but you'll sober up very quickly when you've got to sit there twiddling your thumbs, waiting for the game to load up the next bit. And 99% of games have them. It's probably 100%, but I want to cover my butt for that one indie game that loads everything at the start. So it's impossible to get away from them, and it's entirely possible that we never will. Loading screens are important, easier to load each part one by one rather than all at once and wade through all the lag, but you could at least put a little bit of effort into them. I don't care how many fancy animations you give it, it's still just a loading screen. If you're sitting there waiting for the game to catch up, I'd at least like something to do with my time. Make it a bit more interesting than just staring at a progress bar. And hey, some games can even disguise a loading screen as something seemingly important. Just a shame more games can't be bothered. Hey, while we're on the topic of being brought out of the immersion in a game, put yourself in this situation. You're motoring through a game, having a wonderful time. The game hasn't been too difficult and you're enjoying the gentle challenge the game is presenting before you. Then you arrive at a stumbling block, an obstacle that proves too much for you at this moment in time, hurting both your pride and your appreciation of the game's pacing. So what do you do then? Grind and then grind some more. Grinding and, to a lesser extent, farming are both things that developers don't design into a game most of the time, but are instead the result of a poor difficulty curve. And while that's a different thing to hate about a game, the solution is hardly going to set your world alight. Grinding is, let's face it, really fucking boring. It's you gaining levels or items by fighting the same enemies over and over again until you reckon you can take down the challenge ahead of you. And yes, maybe this resembles all those training montages you see in movies, but the difference here is the word montage, as in highlights, as in all the boring shit taken out to make the experience look much better than it actually is.
Grinding in video games is only truly a pain when you have to do it in order to complete the game, when there's no way forward except for going back to the previous area and fighting some of those same bad guys. Though it does make you wonder why you're the only one doing it. I mean, if some of the random other people in the game could do it, you'd be out of a job as a hero.
From being taken out of a game's immersion to the game trying a little too hard to engage you. Maybe you're taking a rest because there's all this plot going on and you've got a 17-hour cutscene to sit through. That's okay, I'll just put the controller to one side and... Oh fuck, buttons! Gotta press those buttons! Ah shit, I died. In a cutscene!
Because nothing makes you feel more involved while playing a game than pressing a wide assortment of buttons that somehow translate to a variety of dynamic moves. I mean, how did this ever catch on? Why is this a thing in modern gaming?
I'm so nearly okay with QuickTime events, but every time I try to defend them, I'm quickly reminded why that's such a tricky task. On the one hand, they add a bit of palpable tension, and if the game is built around them, it's not such a bad thing. But when they show up at horrendously irregular intervals and for no more than a second, suddenly we're right back at square one. Yeah, it's pretty sweet to have the action in cutscene decided by your own controller inputs, but I think that only works when it's quite a simple thing. Do you seriously expect me to believe that pressing this one button causes all this crazy shit to happen? Surely there's much better and less lazy ways of making your combat feel intuitive and not a crappy attempt to make it feel more cinematic, which don't involve you timing it perfectly with the fear of starting all over again if you fail. And the absolute best thing? They're fucking everywhere. If it wasn't for TV tropes, I probably wouldn't even know what to call this next one. Instead, I'd be talking over this footage while describing it as the thing that happens when you do some things and then can't do things. You know, that thing. But thanks to TV tropes, we have the point of no return. Almost makes them sound responsible for it. The point of no return is very simple to explain. There's naturally some parts of a game that are only available up until certain points in the plot. Shows up quite often in games with strongly defined chapters. In other games, sometimes things happen that prevent you from going back to an area or completing some bonus content. This usually happens towards the end of a game when shit gets real and your character has no time to be wasting on puny side quests. But very occasionally, and very infuriatingly, the game won't tell you when you're going to lose access to areas. Until it happens. 100% completion junkies across the land will be having some mighty strong convulsions at the thought of not being able to go back to places to polish it off. Most of the time it makes a lot of sense, especially if that area doesn't exist anymore, but it just doesn't work from a gameplay perspective. Granted, if it happens late in the game, you'll either have all you need or just straight up don't care, but what if I missed out on a really useful item? What if I've got a whole list of half-finished side quests that the game said would only be around for so long, but didn't specify when they'd expire?
When you're exploring a video game world, you don't like being told which areas you can and can't go to. So you're really not going to enjoy it when you try and go to an area you've already been to, and then you're told you can't come in anymore because you're wearing trainers. What if I left something important in there? What do I do now?
This video has been kind of angry and negative so far, so I reckon we've got a little time to take it easy for a bit. Just take a load off, relax for a bit, allow yourself to be lulled into a sense of security. Everything's gonna be just
Well, this shouldn't take long.
You see how dumb that is? You see how fucking cheap it is to throw in a jump scare? Modern horror games have managed to get stuck in a bit of a rut when it comes to scaring gamers. I imagine it has something to do with everybody being different and how one thing might not have the same effect on different people, or maybe how gamers don't have much of an attention span anymore, but horror game developers are too quick to go down the lazy route of chucking some screaming ghost in front of your face in an attempt to scare you. And the annoying thing is that it works too, though not really in the spirit of what a horror game should be. Being taken aback by a jump scare isn't you being scared of it. It's a natural human reflex action, like your whole body contracting in preparation of having to fight this shouty thing. There's a big difference between the kind of fear you get from a jump scare and the kind of fear you get from a creepy horror ambience. Where jump scares offer you an instant contrast to the world around you, an unsettling ambience plays on your psychological fears. I've been rabbiting on about immersion a lot in this video, but if you really want an involved horror experience that feels rewarding, something you'll almost want to play through just to witness again, jump scares just aren't the way to go. Imagination is a mighty powerful thing, and I don't know about you, but it's pretty tricky trying to imagine the horrors that await in the darkness when they're right in front of me attempting to be spooky. And what sets each jump scare apart? Is it the scare itself, how detailed the monster in front of you is? Nope, it's what the jump scare is contrasted from, how well built up the atmosphere is. The sad thing is, while crafting a creepy mood takes effort and a little knowledge of what people find upsetting, jump scares are as easy and as basic a form of scaring someone as you're ever likely to see.
This has been RabbidLuigi, and when you put a jump scare in your game, you're showing off the scariest points in your game. After that, it can only get less scary from there. For me, what makes a game creepy and unsettling isn't what it shows you, it's what it doesn't show you.
What topic do you want to see on the next top 5? Leave a suggestion in the comments below and follow me on Twitter, or I'll be taking my favourite suggestions and putting them to a vote over there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that. Thankfully, I should be talking about a slightly less negative topic next week. Back-to-back countdowns about hated topics leave you looking in a thesaurus for another way to insult something. So it's always good to freshen things up. And speaking of fresh, don't forget my Twitter and Facebook. Not sure how that's relevant, but hey, there you go.